Hi, folks. This is Dr. Rob CYWES, and I'm a clinically practicing doctor. I encounter patients in the ketogenic space, in the carbohydrate addiction space, at all levels of change. And I've been thinking about the group of patients that I've been seeing and thinking about my start in this from a necessity to change how I manage my emotional tensions. Away from a format of instant gratification that evolved because of a comprehensive deficiency of effective effort-based emotion management strategies and a profoundly eroded sense of self. That's where I come from. And I visit with my patients, and I see various patients, particularly my new patients, and I hear various levels of defensiveness. So I've been thinking about this, and I've been thinking about, okay, how do we help people to change? How do we follow people along a process of change? And one of the fundamental things for me is that I interacted way back with a mental health counselor, a licensed mental health counselor on a professional basis, not as a patient, and introduced me to a book that was written by a group out of Connecticut, lead author by the name of Prochaska. And the book's name is Changing for Good. And what these guys did is they looked at a group of folks who successfully quit smoking. And they went back and analyzed the various stages of change. And I've done some talks on that before, and we will talk a little bit about changing for good. And then I also bumped into a patient the other day who came into my office. She was looking for information, and I had to sit back and evaluate why she was there and also evaluate my interaction with her and how, as I kept bumping into her walls, how increasingly I was struggling. I'm very aware of my own frustrations and not putting them onto my patients. Very cautious about that. Sometimes I fail because I'm learning, but just trying to find a crack in that veneer because I know she desperately wanted help. And then I thought, how do I do that? How do I find that crack so that I can connect to the person behind the wall, to that core person, to that poor, eroded, not poor by poverty, but eroded sense of self, that person that's in a ball that's protecting themselves with this rigid facade that they show to everybody, that even though she's here to help, looking for help, she couldn't lower her defenses. How do I connect with that person? How do I get over that wall to connect with the core? And I couldn't. And the visit ended very poorly. And I felt terrible. I felt awful. I've done so much analysis of what went wrong and how can I do better. And I just couldn't penetrate that wall. It was like kind of funny, but funny in a sad way. It really ended up with, I want to be very cautious about how I talk about this because it is serious. This happens quite often. But this very large person came in and had seen stuff on the internet, was excited to be in my office, hoping that and here's the interesting thing. I initially thought that she came in for our guidance and for our assistance and perhaps for our help. But interestingly, when people are pre-contemplative before they've even thought about the need to change, they look for external things to help them to change. What pill can you give me? What can you do? And a large part of looking for an external resource for change, it's one of the reasons why a lot of people have surgery or take on medications for weight loss, which is just so ironically stupid. Be that as it may, one of the things that people do early on in their journey toward contemplation is they outsource in a very distorted way the reason why they are who they are. So this woman came in morbidly obese. Just enormous. It's so obvious. And at first I thought it was kind of funny, but I kept a very straight face. She said, "Look, doc, look at all this water weight I'm carrying. Look at all this water weight." The other day, I gained 15 pounds of water overnight. And I looked at her, and I've seen an obese person once or twice, both in the mirror as well as in my practice. And this woman was fat, folks. Fat. Every fat person carries a little extra water. But we're still at that 70%. This wasn't a balloon that you've held under the tap and filled with water. So a large part of her thinking was, okay, this is water weight because I suddenly gained 15 pounds overnight. How is that possible? Well, it is possible with water weight, but not to the point that you're carrying almost 200 pounds of extra weight. Not true. But absolutely fastidiously of the belief that this was all water weight and that she had lymphedema and this was lipedema. But she didn't. She didn't have lipedema. She didn't have lymphedema. She had central obesity, estrogen-dominant central obesity, or really subcutaneous obesity. And then as I tried to very carefully, objectively, cautiously help her to connect with the fact that this was fat and that there might be some substance abuse issues going on, tiptoeing around this, trying to find that chink in, because I really wanted to connect with her. She's not crazy. She's just very distorted in her defense of upholding her status quo, and really came in not so much to change, although she desperately desired to change, but really came in to me because of some of what she'd seen in a distorted way of my content to validate her perception of why she was heavy. To the point that eventually, over time, she was telling me about this person she'd seen on the internet who said, yeah, here when we live at sea level, there's all these water droplets in the air and they get sucked into our body, and that's why I'm so big, because of all this. And that was that's not her being silly or facetious. It sounds ridiculous, and it is. But that was an honest belief. It was an honest defensive belief as to why she was who she is. And I could not, for the hour I spent with her, find that crack in her armor to connect with her. It was one of my failures. All I wanted to do was to take her from that very, very, very dark pre-contemplative validation justification space, completely, almost like a stroke victim ignores their bad arm, ignoring her own role in her obesity, and looking for me to justify that this is all water weight, it was all lymphedema, that this might even then be lipedema. No, she didn't have any of those. But I could not, as I do with most of my early patients, advance her to a state of contemplating carbohydrate addiction. And that was my failure. It was tough. Of course it's tough, but this is what I do. And I am still racking. Those are the ones, those folks, where they walk out disgruntled and angry at me. Yes, I've got to learn to let them go. Of course, I know you're yelling at the screen right now saying, let it go, you can't help everybody. You're absolutely right. And that's not what I'm doing here. But I'm self-analyzing, what more could I do? How could I have done this differently to help her to take the first step on a journey, a lifelong journey of recovery? And I failed. And I'm sorry. I am sorry to her that I did that. But folks, that is just a deeply troubling example for me of the entry point into our practice of a lot of people. A lot of folks come in, they're already doing great on keto and they want blood work and that kind of thing. But we also see a large subset of people who come to us for that first step of help and they know nothing about why they're heavy. Then they're in that pre-contemplative stage where it's this. I was put on steroid hormones when I was 15 years old because I had a car accident, and they're now 60 years old, but that's why they're fat. They gained 100 pounds on that steroid hormone came out, or the testosterone or the pain medication, whatever it is, came out of their stomach, picked up cake and put it in their mouths. No, it might have triggered the addiction, but ultimately this is a carbohydrate addiction. And yes, the drugs mess with your head. Steroids may cause some weight gain because they mess with your ability to process sugars, but they didn't cause the addiction. They didn't cause this. They didn't do this. And how do we reconcile that pre-contemplative state where, oh, I had a back injury and that's why I'm fat? But that was 20 years ago. But we cling onto those, we grasp onto those flotation devices to explain to us why we are, because the truth hurts so much. And the truth means you have to change when you see it. And we fear change. We don't want to change. So we have to help people get from that state of pre-contemplation. No, I'm fine, or it's this reason, or I don't want to change. And it doesn't matter what the drug is, whether it's carbohydrates, whether it's nicotine, crystal meth, crack cocaine, spousal abuse, yelling, screaming, shouting, cutting. I don't care what it is, pornography. The desire to change isn't there, and the defensiveness is there. That's pre-contemplation. And then we have to help people to switch over to a contemplation phase where I love this stuff. It's so nice for me. It's so beneficial. I so enjoy it. But here's the harm. And let's start to look at the harm, and let's start to look at my role in this. And we want to objectify that so that they see it as external to themselves. Wow, I love this stuff, but look at what it's doing to me. That's contemplation. And there's a battleground that we have to help for folks to undergo in their own heads. There's a battle that we have to fight in our own heads. And I'm going to look at, read a part of that battle to you. Because the stages of change are so important when you're helping somebody or when you're trying to do this yourself. And the first step, which is where I failed with this particular person, is what I call consciousness raising. Raising an awareness of what the true problem is. Making what is unconscious conscious. And I failed with that person. And yes, we both failed, but there will be a next time, I hope. Then we want to start looking at, once we're aware, start looking at our environment, start looking at other people, looking at people similar to us. How is that obese person eating? What's in that obese person's cart? Where are they? Why is there, another patient of mine, Lisa, talked about this the other day. Why are there so few fat people out walking? All the people walking are skinny. Because they're ashamed. And Lisa wrote me a letter and she said, I have to counter my own shame to get my fat ass out on the road and walk. And when I did that, and I was proud of the fact that I walked, and I didn't give a shit about what anybody else said, then I could begin my journey. But until that time, I protected in a distorted way my need to change because of my shame. And Lisa started walking, and I walked on her shoulder. That's what she said to me in a letter. It was a beautiful letter. But that's how she started her journey of change. She had to incorporate and understand and come to terms with and contemplate her own shame and use it to begin this journey, to begin to change away from her drug of choice, carbohydrates, and get out on that road and start walking. And she dropped weight and she is doing fabulously well, but she had to own that defense mechanism. Because we have to go through a stage of emotional arousal during that early contemplative stage, where we become aware of our defenses against change, and we arouse those emotions of, I want to change, why am I not changing? And it's a deep, visceral feeling. And it's so important in the early stages to have that dramatic come to Jesus. Sometimes some people believe, change will only happen when you hit rock bottom, when that awful thing happens, when you have the heart attack, when you have the stroke, when you're diagnosed with diabetes, when you put on hypertensive medication. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's someone who's waited too long. Interventions can help. Not you should. But hey, have you ever thought about, tough to do, planting the seed, watching it grow. And hopefully we help those people to reevaluate who they are and what they're currently doing from a different perspective. But we can only do that when you objectify your problems. So you can reappraise what is important here. How important is that cookie or that cake versus my hypertension medication, my atrial fibrillation, my obesity, the fact that I cannot sit on the ground and play with my child. We have to continuously reevaluate the pros and cons of change. And so often we ignore them. I've got another term which is going to come up in a little bit, which is another way to look at change. And then out of that contemplation, we begin to see whether we can make a commitment to ourselves. Can I choose to change? Am I responsible for my own change? Or am I outsourcing it and placing responsibility in somebody else's hands, or some drug or some surgery that cannot possibly change on my behalf? They can make changes to me, but they cannot change me. They can make changes to me, but they cannot change me. A diet can make changes to your weight. Surgery can make changes to your weight. Medication can make changes to your diabetes or to your cholesterol level or to your blood pressure, but they cannot change you. Only you can change you. Only you can change you. You cannot outsource lifestyle change. Once you make that commitment, it's not a single thing. It can be. But most often, it's the evolution of a thought where you start to accept responsibility that you want to change and that you are the one who is responsible. And I just did a video on self-speak. And it's about the conversation that you have with yourself, where you begin to make that change in the conversation you have away from defensive and distortion of reality to, yes, I'm going to do this. Having that Nike moment, just doing it. And then you've got to look at what it is that you're giving up and what purpose did it have in your life. Why do I need that in my life? Everything that causes us harm has a beneficial purpose. So when you remove that, when you change that behavior, you also at the same time have to figure out what replacement for the beneficial part without liability you're going to do. That's removal and replacement. That's inherent to addiction management. But it requires effort, it requires action on your part. This is not a passive journey. And what you want to be able to do is to protect you from yourself. How am I going to navigate the removal of this drug from my local environment? Yes, I can always get in the car and drive down to the store to get ice cream, but if it is locally available to me, I am going to eat it. I do not have that ability not to. And when I buy ice cream for my husband, it's bullshit. I'm buying it for me, with his name attached. So how do I reconcile those little things? When I'm buying keto ice cream, that's BS. Come on, guys, that's ice cream. That is preserving the addiction and making it tolerable to yourself. And the toughest part is talking to the people around you, talking to your loved ones, talking to your spouses, talking to those who can help you to change your relationship with your drug. Because it requires vulnerability, it requires humility, it requires ownership. But it's the strongest bonds you can possibly have. Asking for their help, asking for their patience, asking for their tolerance, asking for their assistance. Because you don't have to go it alone. And that's where we come in. As guides, but also as support structure. Because we can give you understanding, but more importantly than anything else, we give you acceptance. Not blame, not judgment, not criticism, but acceptance that you are doing the best you can do, and we meet you where you are and help you to advance from that point, not tell you where you should be or where I would want you to be. And that is the contemplation of change. And when it comes to thinking about change, I heard something beautiful the other day, which I want to share with you. And I've got to get this, I write these things down. That's how my brain works. My hard drive up here is full. So I use an external hard drive. Yep, I'm old-fashioned. It's called pen and paper, folks. I don't use this electronic nonsense. But this is a beautiful thing I heard, and I'm stealing this from somebody. I just don't even recall, it's my Alzheimer's, where it came from. But this person used two descriptors. And ultimately, and this is bizarre, even though change is very disruptive, we have to be cognizant of the concept of safety. We have to change within a safe environment. And there are really two environments in which people change. The first one is what's been called flaccid safety. Flaccid safety. And I've got a beautiful quote out there that I stole from Elon Musk, but I don't even know if he stole it from somebody else, but it says, my greatest battles were fought alone when nobody knew I was struggling. My greatest changes happened alone when everyone thought I was fine. Flaccid change, where nothing appears to change. There are no ripples on the pond, but underneath, the waters are swirling. And that's when you go it alone. And there's some people that do that. Some people, and I'm kind of one of those. And that's a fault, not an asset. It's a fault, not an asset. Because when I have taken the risk of involving others in my process of change, it has gone forward in leaps and bounds. But I, early on, was a flaccid changer. When nobody knew, but I was working my ass off under the waters. It's 23, 24 years ago, before my current family. And that flaccid change is where there is no visible change, but you're swirling underneath. And the problem with flaccid change, or flaccid safety, is that it's also the thing that keeps people addicted, that keeps the status quo. Because nobody recognizes that you want to change, and everybody is petrified of talking to you about it. So flaccid safety is actually a pre-contemplative state, where everybody kind of sees the fat guy or the diabetic. They're worried about you, but, oh no, we can't talk about it. We can't talk about it. Stiff upper lip. Very British of you. Carry on. And we don't change. We support the addiction. We support that early framework of protectionism because nobody is discussing the problem. The elephant in the room is invisible. And it is tough to change within that flaccid safety. People do. But most of the time, flaccid safety preserves the status quo and is not a good place to be. But it's not disruptive of the people around you, the enablers, everybody else. The second form of safety is dynamic safety. Dynamic safety. And that's what we offer. That's what I offer to our patients. And dynamic safety is about rupture and repair. Rupture and repair, where you crumple up the cigarettes, you throw them away, you pour the booze down the toilet. You don't keep flaccid safeties. I'm going to keep the cigarettes here, but I'm just not going to smoke them. Rupture. I'm not going to hang out with you anymore because you're a smoker. Or all we ever do is eat. I'm not going to hang out with you. Rupture and then repair. So you destroy something, you break something up, which is your relationship with your drug of choice. Because you've gone through that contemplative state and now it's this angry, sudden action. You try to eat that elephant in one bite. And some people can. Most people struggle with that. Rupture and repair. And it creates a new safety when other people understand that that's what you do. Every narcissist has supporters and friends. But narcissism is rupture and repair while you're in neutral, you're not going anywhere. So you have this explosion of badness and everybody around you, oh, there. Repair. That is an awful way to engage with a narcissist because you will not get them to change. You're preserving who they are. And that's problematic because you then become a repairing enabler. But and that provides safety to that person who is always having these explosions. Rupture and repair. But on the other hand, if you're changing in that paradigm, you can articulate, guys, this is going to be tough. I'm going to have a rough time. I'm going to quit drinking. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to quit doing heroin or carbohydrates. It's going to suck because I'm rupturing the status quo. But walk this journey with me because my repair is going to be my new life. Walk with me on this. And there are friends that will stand with you on that. There are friends that will encourage you to go for that walk with them, to do those things with them. Rupture and repair does not work for narcissists because of their enablers that are hell-bent on creating a flaccid safety. But the rupture and repair that works well provides safety to change, to disrupt things. I'm going to support you. I'm going to support you when all you desperately want to do is stuff your head into the bottom of a tub of ice cream. I'm going to be there to support you when you crash and burn because I care about you and I'm going to support you through this. So you choose. There's no one or better. I've got some patients who can be that tortoise, who need to be the tortoise of slow progressive change. Safety, flaccid safety. Little changes. And then I've got those that want to eat the elephant in one bite and want to have that rupture and repair, that dynamic safety of change itself. There's no one pathway. And when I meet new patients, I have to understand that. When they're engaged, when they are contemplating change and they want to get into that first stage of preparation and action, because that's what it takes. An action can be one step at a time. It can be an explosion. There's no one right way or wrong way. But everybody on the internet has one way of doing it. You must do it this way. You must do it this way. No, you don't. My job in my profession is to help you to analyze what form of change is best for you and help you to facilitate that, help you to create that safety for you where you are changing, whether it is a flaccid safety or whether it is a dynamic safety. Let's go there. Because you know what matters? What matters is that you change. Because that's why you're here. That's why you're watching this video. Think that through and watch this video before you come and see me. And let's talk about it. Because this is what's going on in my head all the time before and while I'm meeting with you. Who are they? Are they authoritarian? Are they permissive? What type of change are they capable of? And we set you up in a journey that I think is best suited to you. Am I right all the time? Hell no, I'm not. Hell no, I'm not. And I often get surprised. Oh, we've done this. We see this. We do this. Let us help you. If you are interested in change, if you're interested in finding a dynamic that works for you, finding a pathway that keeps you safe while you wrestle with yourself, that helps you to help yourself, because ultimately it is between you and you. We can understand this. We can help you through this early transition from pre-contemplation to contemplation. But along the way is, who am I? How do I change best? And that's what we can help you with. Give us a shout. This is high-end stuff. I'm a surgeon. What the hell do I know about psychology? It's because I do it every day. Never read a book, never written a book. That's a thorn in my side. But if you think we can help, and if you've got ideas about this, if you've got thoughts about this, if you've got comments about this, if it's bullshit, leave a comment. Hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment. Help me out. I'm wrestling with this. I'm trying to make it better. Leave comments. Tell me what worked for you. Tell me what didn't work for you. Give us a call. 561-517-0642, preferably text or WhatsApp. and we'll set up a visit. I am the Carb Addiction Doc. This is a process of change. Life is going to change you. Life is going to change you. Nobody cannot stand still on a moving treadmill. It spits you out. However, you are either in the driver's seat of the changes of your life or the passenger seat. And we help you to be in the driver's seat of which direction your changes are going. But you will change. You are going to change. If you think you're not going to change, that's flaccid safety. Not a good place to be. I am the Carb Addiction Doc. Give us a shout. We'll talk to you next time. Leave comments.